I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. This week we're experimenting a little bit, and that's because I keep seeing this Betsey Johnson witch hand necklace everywhere. I remember seeing it last year towards the end of spooky season. I guess I missed it the first time, but it's back again this year. It's a super cute necklace, but it is $150. Now, while I love Betsey Johnson, she's an icon, $150 is a little steep for me personally. So instead, I'm gonna see if I can make it. Or at least my own version of it. I'm gonna keep the color palette green on green, kind of like Elphaba, you know, brighter green skin and darker green nails. And I'm not gonna give the hand a big ring like in Betsey's version, because it's just not for me. So this is a much more pared down version of Betsey's necklace. Also, I'm using plastic gems and jump rings, so it's gonna be a lot cheaper, but it's gonna be fun. With that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you'll need the following: acrylic sew-on rhinestones in green, jump rings and lobster clasps, needle nose pliers, hot glue, and then to connect everything together to make the necklace, you're either going to want to get a chain at the craft store, or if you're like me and didn't realize you didn't have chain on hand, you could use bead-along wire and some extra beads to kind of make it like a necklace feel at the end. But really, I recommend getting a chain to finish this off if you're going to try and do this at home. And again, anything I mentioned here in materials will be available in the link below if you want to try this project yourself. To start, I roughly drew out the shape of the arm and the hand. From there, I started to pull out rhinestones in the yellow-green color for the skin and dark green for the nails. And then I laid them out on top of my drawing so I knew how everything would look and how it would be attached. Once I was satisfied with the layout, I started to count how many gems per shape that I had. This way, I could pull out the same amount for the opposite side of the necklace. I then did just that, going through and making sure I had enough of each shape and color to mirror the hand on the opposite side. You want to do this before you start so that you don't end up making one side and then when you go to do the other, realize you don't have enough gems to do so. So always count out first before you start. And if you have to make any adjustments, then you can do it then before you've spent all this time attaching all these pieces together. Once I put those gems for the second hand aside, I started to attach the pieces for the hand that I had just laid out, starting by attaching all the fingernails to the fingers and then attaching one finger together at a time before moving on to the next section. Here's where things got a little tricky. I wanted to attach the knuckle area together so that it was like one big bead because I wanted this to be able to hold its shape. I realized that if I didn't attach those pieces together, you'd have 4 or 5 individual strands just kind of hanging there, and we don't want that. We want to make sure that there's a solid hand shape here to get the look of witch hands hanging down. So I decided to use hot glue here to make this one large bead. But before I did that, I tested it out on gems of the same shape in a different color just so that I could see that it worked, which it did. So then I did the same thing with the real gems for the necklace. I lined up the 4 rectangular gems and placed a line of hot glue around the middle of it so that they would hold together. Then I very carefully took that thumb knuckle piece and angled it the way it would be on the necklace and attached it also with some hot glue. Once that was completely dry and everything was attached, I added the fingers onto the knuckle piece with the jump rings, as well as the pieces that would begin to make up the hand. Once those were attached, I added a line of hot glue on the back just like before, just to make sure that those hand pieces kept their structure. I then repeated this process, adding in the next 3 gems, then flipping them over and adding a little bit of hot glue to attach them together, and then realized that the fingers were also dangling a little bit too much for my liking. So then I added hot glue across the first 3 rows of the finger gems just very lightly so that they kind of stayed in place and would hang down properly. Once that was dry, I went back to working up the arm, going one by one and adding in the gems like I had planned. Since that middle strand is kind of floating, I flipped it over again and added hot glue to the middle strand of gems and the outer strand of gems so that they would kind of stay together and keep the shape. Once that was all finished, I repeated the process with the other hand, but this time mirrored to match the piece I had just made. Now it's time to connect the pieces together. Like I said, I thought I had chain on hand, but I didn't. So instead, I pulled out some bead-along wire and some beads to make a makeshift necklace/chain situation. I tied on the wire to one of the arms, secured it, and then added in some beads before tying on a lobster claw clasp at the end of the necklace. That is hard to say. Then I repeated that same process on the other side. However, this time I made a loop at the end with the wire instead of adding a clasp, so that this way the clasp on the opposite side would have something to link onto. Then I took a jump ring and attached some of the opposite nails together so that the hands are angled towards each other. And well, with that, I was done, which means it's time for the reveal. Here it is, ta-da! I personally liked that I kept it a green on green scheme. Yes, it's giving a little bit of Elphaba with the dark green nails and the lighter green hands. I might attach some more fingers together to make it really round in a little bit more, but I think it's really fun. I'll admit I had most of the supplies on hand, and so really all I had to buy were the rhinestones for this project, which yes, I should add in all the cost total. This didn't cost me more than $15 to make, and maybe you can tell that it cost around $15 to make. make. But I don't think so. I think it actually turned out pretty good. I think this does a good job of still reading as witch hands and giving the vibe of the original necklace. Obviously, this is not going to look as good as a $150 piece of jewelry is, but considering I spent around $15 total to make this, I think that's pretty darn good. Now, I don't mind that it doesn't have the big rings or big jewelry on it, but I think that could be really fun to add if you want to do that. So you might take out some of the finger gems here to put a larger gem in, but that's something you can add when you're doing that planning stage in the beginning and just suss out how you want it to look. If you were going to do this project at home, how would you do it? Would you do it like I did and have an alphaba sort of thing going on with just green on green? Would you add in bright colorful nails or black nails or white nails? Would you add in jewelry? I'd love to know, so let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!